A tugboat suddenly got something caught in its propeller as it was traveling down the river. Initially, the crew thought it was maybe some fishing line or trash, but when they went to check, they realized it was actually the severed skin of a human. This is the horrific story of a Polish college student who was skinned alive and then discarded in the river. This case went unsolved for over 20 years until 2022 when police finally shut the door on this grisly case. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons and stick around to the end of this video where I explain the newest updates about this case. Viewer discretion is advised as some aspects of this story may be difficult to listen to. And now I present to you the gruesome tale of the human skin suit. Katarzyna Zowada was a 23-year-old university student in Krakow, Poland. She was described by many friends as a nice but withdrawn and sad person. This was due to the depression she had been suffering since her father's death in 1996. She regularly received professional care for this depression and had an appointment scheduled at a local psychiatric clinic on November 12, 1998. She never arrived at the clinic. Her mother was meeting her at the appointment, as she often did in order to provide her daughter moral support. She knew something was wrong when Katarzyna didn't show for the appointment and promptly went to the police. The police simply told her, however, that she shouldn't worry right now and that Katarzyna was likely with friends and forgot to show up to the appointment. They informed her that it was too soon to file a missing persons report and sent her away. She knew something was seriously wrong, however, because Katarzyna was not the type of person to miss appointments without notice. She began to frantically search everywhere for her daughter, but unfortunately didn't find her. Katarzyna's friends and acquaintances began to wonder if she might have ran away, or even committed suicide due to her depression. For 2 months, all anyone could do was theorize. Then, in January 1999, a chilling discovery was made that would shock the community to its core and lead investigators on a case that would span decades. On January 6th, a tugboat named the Elk was sailing down the Vistula River when the crew members suddenly noticed that something had become stuck in the boat's propeller. Initially assuming some trash or fishing line had gotten caught, they stopped the boat to investigate. They discovered it was a rubber band-like material that had gotten caught and wrapped all the way around the propeller. When they removed it, the crew members noticed a human ear attached to the object. That's when they realized the object wasn't made of rubber at all. It was the detached skin of a human. At first, people assumed that the body had been so badly damaged by the propeller that it caused the skin to detach. But after closer examination, it was determined that the skin had been removed prior to being caught in the propeller. In fact, it was discovered that the skin was removed while the person was still alive. DNA tests soon revealed that the skin belonged to Katarzyna Zowada. About a week later, a severed right leg washed up on the bank of the Vistula River, not far from where the Elk crew had made the shocking discovery. Alongside the detached leg, pieces of clothing also turned up. Police found that these also belonged to Katarzyna. Investigators discovered something even more gruesome about the detached skin upon closer examination. There were particular holes cut out in specific portions of the skin that indicated this flesh was fashioned as a suit, and whoever killed her had likely been wearing her skin as a costume at some point. Her head and arms had been removed completely, and the entirety of her body has never been located. This was one of the most horrific murder cases Poland has ever seen, and they even reached out to the FBI for assistance in the investigation. Her body was covered in stab wounds, and she had been drugged, severely beaten, and tortured for several weeks before she was murdered, and there was also evidence that she had been sexually assaulted both before and after her murder. Police didn't really have any leads at first because they had never seen anything like this in the city's entire history. Her friends said they believed Katarzyna had been in a secret relationship in the months leading up to her death, as they had taken notice to the fact that she had recently began wearing more makeup and styling her hair differently. Unfortunately, this was really the only information they were able to provide to police because no one had actually seen her with a man. Later in 1999, a similar murder case occurred in Krakow that led police to believe they surely found Katarzyna's murderer. Police discovered the corpse of a man who had been stabbed to death in the face by a screwdriver, then skinned and decapitated. The murderer then walked up and talked to his elderly grandfather wearing his father's face as a mask. Police arrested the man, known only as Vladimir W., and initially charged him with both murders. They believed two similar murders in the same city within the span of a few months was too much of a coincidence. Though Vladimir had at one point attended the same university as Katarzyna, he denied knowing who she even was, and after an investigation, police determined there was no evidence to connect him to the crime and dropped the charges against him for Katarzyna's murder. After this, the case went cold for several years until 2012 when investigators did a 3D scan on Katarzyna's remains to seek more info. They found that she had been chained up and the marks and slashes on her body indicated that the person who inflicted them was likely trained in martial arts, since certain patterns of the marks were indicative of various techniques. Rare plant matter was also located on the clothing they found, which is only found in certain parts of Krakow, so they figured they could probably pinpoint where along the river her body was disposed. In 2017, police received a letter from a person who claimed they knew the identity of Katarzyna's murderer. They said this person was strangely obsessed with this case and had even visited her grave on several occasions. They said this person was known to enjoy torturing and murdering animals as well. Furthermore, this person lived nearby the river where her remains were found. 52-year-old Robert Yanshevsky was arrested and charged with Katarzyna's murder. He was one of the first suspects when the investigation originally began, but police didn't have enough evidence at the time to arrest him. Yanshevsky was a highly skilled martial artist. He previously worked in a lab where he dissected human corpses. He also used to work for the Krakow Institute of Zoology before he was fired for murdering all of the rabbits at the institute during one of his shifts. People who knew Robert described him as a weirdo and freak, who also had a long history of harassing women, and neighbors claim he was a peeping Tom, sometimes watching them through their windows. Some sources claim that upon searching his apartment, police found traces of Katarzyna's blood and hair in his bathtub, as well as a letter that described her torture and murder as well. However, due to the secrecy surrounding this case from investigators, this has been unconfirmed. Yanshevsky himself has vehemently denied all accusations and claims that the evidence was planted against him in order for the police to make an arrest in this case. He was held behind bars for 5 years while police collected more evidence. Finally, in 2022, Robert Yanshevsky was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Katarzyna Zowada.
It's hard to imagine that someone has the capability to commit such a despicable act against another person. Katarzyna can unfortunately never have her life back, but luckily her family now has a sense of closure with Robert behind bars. Thanks for tuning into another video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on notifications so you can be first in line for more true horror stories like this. It's farewell for now, and I'll see you in the next video.